Hey, Shred fan, welcome to the second episode of the History of Shred, the podcast with me, Justin Hombach, and the Shred legend himself, Christian Münzner. Hello, Christian, how are you doing?
I'm doing great today. How about you?
I'm doing also really, really fine. I'm really excited about today's episode. But before we're
Me
going to
too.
get into today's episode, I want to just give a big thank you to everybody who watched the first episode about Yngwie. Your feedback was really, really great. It was a lot of pleasure seeing you guys enjoying this episode and this podcast. We're working on it to improving it to the next level, but of course, we'll continue doing it. And today we have a really special really, really special person for our podcast because, of course, we were all thinking like, okay, who is going to be next and who should be shoes, etc., etc. And you guys, you suggested some really, really great players. We're going to take some looks in some of those players that you suggested under the comment section of the YouTube video. And yeah, who is it who we are going to talk about today, Christian?
It's Tony MacAlpine, and I have to say, this is a very special episode for me because he might be my favorite musician of all time. I mean, it's hard to say because when you listen to music for 30 years and study so many players, of course, you go through different phases, and it's hard to pinpoint it to like one guy, But when I think of the player I probably listened to the most and also have a very special history with, and so much music that I like, his name pops up all the time. He might be, so certain days when you ask me, who is not only my favorite guitar player, but my favorite musician in terms of composer and composition and everything. Uh, Many days there's a high chance that my answer would be Tony MacAlpine. He is obviously among guitar players well known through his career on Shrapnel Records. And I guess his most cited record is Maximum Security, even though we'll talk about this later. That one was actually not on Shrapnel, and it was his second solo record. And so he's an American guitar player, but also a piano player, keyboard player, violin player. Born 1960 in Springfield, Massachusetts. Started playing the piano at the age of 5, then started playing guitar at the age of 12. Released his first solo record, Edge of Insanity, through Shrapnel Records in 1985. And I think this album was actually the first all-instrumental neoclassical shred album. Because if we talked in the last episode about Rising Force by Yngwie, but that had 2 vocal tracks on it. And this actual shrapnel blueprint of this like neoclassical, it was called at that time, there were stickers on these vinyls, it was called Neoclassical Fusion. That's kind of how it was marketed. Yeah. Because it was probably the closest thing to that were probably those 70s records by Aldi Meola or something, but then this was more in the heavy metal realm, more neoclassical, now with fast double bass, harpsichords, church organs and stuff like that. And I think Edge of Insanity was actually the first all-instrumental shrapnel album that then, of course, started this entire wave and trend. And yeah, I have a lot to tell about Tony MacAlpine, but maybe we'll get to that later. So what was your first introduction to Tony MacAlpine's music?
That's an interesting question because it took me a while until I, discovered fully the genius of Tony MacAlpine. And when it comes to the shred people and how I grew up with the shred people, definitely was one of the latest kind of
Okay.
person that I discovered entirely. I would say I assume that my first introduction with Tony was through the band Planet X that we
Okay.
definitely have to talk later
Yeah,
about a little bit more
definitely.
because I remember, being in my first Dream Theater phase, then Derek Sherinian, and then seeing what Derek Sherinian was doing after he was kicked out in Dream Theater,
Hmm.
Planet X, and excuse me, oh, I had a little bit to eat recently. No, and
Oh,
yeah,
that's my
even though
dog.
that the first plan, oh, there's Rambo. Oh, hello, yeah, really good.
Big MacAlpine fan as well.
Oh, nice.
Rambo.
Oh, so
So
he's
okay.
enjoying. He's joining. Nice.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, and even though that the first record of Planet X is not with Tony MacAlpine, but the second and the third one is, and or the first one is kind of a solo record from Derek Sherinian. And there I discovered Tony the first time, and then more and more. And I remember like there was one day in early 2010, something like that, where on eBay somebody was selling like 10, 15 CDs from the 80s. And on one of those CDs, there were like two Tony MacAlpine CDs, and that was my first introduction into his solo record. And when I remember correctly, nowadays I have much more, but when I remember correctly, I think it was Maximum Security, yes, and one from the 90s, Violent Machine.
Ah, that's a great one. Yeah, that was
Mhm.
so. My story was really really interesting. How I discovered Tony
Yeah,
MacAlpine's music. So of course, as we talked about last time, I got into Yngwie in the mid '90s, and then it's the days pre-internet days, right? So before there was the internet. My father used to go on business travels a lot and brought me Guitar World magazines or Guitar for the Practicing Musicians from the airports, and I would read those names. And one day he brought a magazine, I think was a Guitar Techniques edition, and it had a transcription from the solo of the time and the test from the Maximum Security record. But I had never heard the music. I only read his name sometimes somewhere that supposedly this guy is very good. And then I was actually practicing licks from this transcription without ever having like heard it. And there was like a harmonic analysis, and then okay, supposedly this guy is very good, but it was actually impossible to buy his records anywhere in Germany, at least where I lived on the countryside in a music store. It wasn't possible. And then what happened? I went in '97. So I still had not heard a single note by Tony MacAlpine at that time. I went with a friend of mine to the Musikmesse in Germany. For the American listeners, this is kind of the German equivalent of the NAMM show. It used to be. It's not it used to be. It's non-existent anymore nowadays, unfortunately. But and so we went there, and I think I went there every year in the '90s from '94 between '94 and '98, and always saw great players there. And then in 1997, we went by I think it was the PV booth where and there was like a time schedule, and it said, oh, at 4 o'clock or something, Tony MacAlpine and band are playing. And I told my friend, man, I heard this guy is supposedly really really good. I read his name all the times in guitar magazines. We definitely should check this out. And so he was playing there with a full band. I think it was Mike Terrano on drums, and yes, yes, and it was actually the Violent Machine tour, and I had never heard a single note, and it was like a room where that could sit like maybe 30 or 40 people, and they were actually playing a full set uh, in order to promote the equipment, that for the company. He was playing a EVH Wolfgang guitar, like the Van Halen model at the time, and I was blown away when I heard that music live. No, I already liked Yngwie, I already liked Dream Theater at the time, but Tony's music with I don't know, with these neoclassical themes and the fast double bass, and then his technical command, like every technique in the book, he had like super control of. And at that age, I was 15, and I was so flashed, like it was like a life-changing moment. It was like from that, it was instantly my favorite guitar player at that point. And we went on a Saturday, and because we liked the show so much, we were like, I want to see Tony MacAlpine play again. We actually slept in the car to stay another day and go to the Musikmesse the next day. And the next day, and yeah, I was like 15, and then super fanboying, and then I saw Tony walking around actually in the morning in the Musikmesse, and I talked to him, hey, you're Tony MacAlpine, and did a little small talk, and he was like super super cool, and I was like, oh, I want to check out these pedals, and he was like super super nice. And then I bought the CD, the Violent Machine album, because that was the CD that came out at the time, and they were selling it from the stage basically, right? So I bought directly from him the CD and the T-shirt for Violent Machine. Yeah, and since then been like a super fan. But so yeah, so my first introduction to his music was actually hearing them perform the stuff live, and they played a lot of stuff because I see the set lists now from what they played in '96, '97. There was a lot of stuff from Maximum Security on there, from Edge of Insanity, from Violent Machine, which I think is a very, very underrated record of him. And so then of course, I wanted to track down his albums later on. And then again, when my dad was on business travel, he brought me from Hong Kong. I think he brought me Edge of Insanity and Evolution. So I had sort of were the next CDs I got by Tony MacAlpine. So I used to listen to those religiously. And then I was reading that Maximum Security apparently is like his most talked about album. Then I found like a mail order somewhere in Germany where I ordered the Maximum Security album. So that was my introduction to Tony's music. So that was around 1997. Yeah, so very, very interesting.
So
Yeah.
let's get a little bit into the beginning of Tony MacAlpine.
Yeah.
We already mentioned that, the first record, Edge of Insanity, which I still think one of the best, as you already mentioned, like neoclassical records, because Tony MacAlpine, he knows how to also have good songwriting. That's the good thing about Tony. That's something that we're definitely going to discuss in the later records as well. He always has like interesting melodies, interesting chord progressions.
Yeah.
When he can definitely hear that immediately with the Edge of Insanity record. Right. One thing that is quite interesting, I think, for the Edge of Insanity record is the lineup, actually, the personals behind that.
Oh, yeah.
Something that I didn't knew till last weekend. Last weekend, I was, I was having a show with Dawn of Victory, playing the Best of Rhapsody, and Alex Holsworth, the drummer of Rhapsody, is a huge Tony MacAlpine fan.
Right, I know.
And we were talking about the first record, and I always thought or had in my mind that, like it was at that time with Shrapnel, etc., that the drums on that record, for example, was either Atma Anmur or Dean Castronovo.
They played on the second one. They played on
the
Maximum
second one. Yeah. But here we have Steve Smith on drums.
Exactly.
From
Journey.
Journey, and especially a fusion drummer. He was doing a lot with Frank Gambale and Vital Information. Right. Really great drummer. And Billy Sheehan on bass.
Billy Sheehan on bass, long before the Mr. Big days, actually.
Long before the Mr. Big days, that's true. Yeah. So it is also like a trio record, which is, I think, also quite interesting.
Yeah.
So what do you have to say about Edge of Insanity?
Yeah, Edge of Insanity is probably my favorite Tony MacAlpine record. I know most people would pick Maximum Security for me. I love Maximum Security, but I think probably it's Edge of Insanity for me. And the interesting thing is Tony was actually involved with all three of those records. For me, this is a trilogy of Edge of Insanity by Tony MacAlpine, Mind's Eye by Vinnie Moore, and Out of the Sun by Joy Follow. All these three records are a little bit in the same kind of vein. Yeah. It's very melodic, very epic neoclassical fusion. And Tony actually plays keyboards on Vinnie Moore's Mind's Eye record and on Out of the Sun. Right. And apparently even is credited with the songwriting on Out of the Sun and some tunes. So Edge of Insanity for me has the super strong melodies, incredible key changes, chord progressions, just a very, very epic flair or vibe that I really like. Like it resonated with me from the first moment. I love every song on it, even the live guitar solo, which is like definitely in studio where they put like, and you listen to it and you think like he's playing in a stadium in front of 300,000 people.
That was actually something where, for me as a 40-year-old or 50-year-old, because a lot of live people are doing that, or shred people are doing that back in the day when they released live stuff. I was always thinking like, wow, this sounds like they are playing arenas.
That stuff was big in the 80s,
and so many people were screaming, and then somewhere I read that it was all fake. That this,
of course, this is over same the Razor X Extreme Live volume. Is very similar. So but Edge of Insanity, this album has so many great tunes. I mean, Wheel of Fortune, the opener. Then my favorite for is The Taker. With the harpsichord interlude and the bass doing like the counterpoint. Empire in the Sky, such an epic melody.
Raven, Stranger.
The Raven, the Stranger, So it's like, and of course, all these old Tony MacAlpine records, I think up to Chromaticity, all of them had like a Chopin piano etude or a piano piece that he's actually playing. So when I always used to tell my students, parent students in the musical, the kids, when the parents didn't like heavy metal, I'm like, listen to this, and then your parents can see that there's a little connection, might be a good introduction also for the kids to classical music. So So yeah, so and of course, the production is quite rough on most of these old Shrapnel records, but I really like that, like nowadays it has a certain
Hmm.
charm, and they recorded all of these records in very short time. I mean, Mike Varney
Yeah.
was not necessarily known for spending a lot of money on production, so he gave every artist like 4 or 5 days to record the entire album, like everything
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
recording drums, bass, all guitars, keyboards, solos, mixing, all 4 or 5 days, and it's I cannot imagine doing this anymore nowadays.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's how it was, and yeah, and so I think this album is, of course, Yngwie started the neoclassical movement in terms of popularity and stuff, but with this whole shrapnel thing, it was actually Tony MacAlpine, and and people then back in the day used to say, "Oh, it's like a Malmsteen clone," but I don't think so. It's just
Nah.
they both
Yeah.
play
Yeah.
neoclassical music,
Yeah.
but McAlpine, I mean, he started playing in 1972 or something, and some of his influence were Alan Holdsworth and George Benson and players like this,
Hmm.
and then he developed his technique way before Yngwie hit the scene, and also his classical background is from studying piano and violin at the conservatory, so
Yeah.
so it's a natural thing to do that, and Yngwie
Yeah.
might just have been on the scene maybe a few years earlier, but I think they're very different players. McAlpine doesn't
Totally.
play Strat, he plays a
Totally.
humbucker, that's more the whammy bar, vibrato stuff, the Alan Holdsworth kind of like
Legato,
legato and
fluence,
dips and things. Yeah,
tapping,
yeah,
and
yeah,
some sweeper pitches. Yeah.
exactly.
From the playing style, he's definitely different than Yngwie. Maybe,
Yeah,
as you've mentioned last episode already, like Mark Varney put said like, okay, let's do certain songs a little bit more like Yngwie, or
right,
let's
right,
push
right.
it into a certain direction. But his playing style and his solo style, yeah, was definitely more influenced by fusion players and
Yeah,
by all these fluent players,
yeah.
rather compared to the percussive
Staccato,
hardcore picker, staccato picker like
hmm
Malmsteen or
Yeah,
Gilbert. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah. I mean, he can do the fast picking also and does it, but it sounds very different, right? Than
totally, totally.
when Yngwie is playing. Yeah, so very special record for me, definitely.
Yeah. 1 year later, we go to the next big record for
Mhm.
Tony MacAlpine. Probably, I would say, one of his most famous record, Maximum Security.
Right, there's one in between actually. Did you know that? It's a
Okay.
vocal project. It's the Project Driver record with
Yes.
with Rob Rock of Impellitteri, but it's not a solo
Yeah.
record, so not sure. But we could talk about this also, but we can also talk about it later. But I think it's a very interesting record because it was a project that was originally supposed to be with Jeff Scott Soto on vocals and Kurt James from Dr. Mastermind on guitar, another really great
Hmm.
player. And then the rhythm section of Ozzy at the time, Rudy Sarso and Tommy Aldridge, who played on,
Yeah.
I think, Diary of a Madman and Speak of a Devil.
Hmm.
And I know Rudy Sarso was on and Speak of the Devil, I think. But anyway, so there was them, but then it didn't work out with Jeff Scott Soto and Kurt James. And then they got Tony MacAlpine and Rob Rock, who's now known for being the vocalist of Impellitteri.
Yeah.
And they did the Project Driver record, which is, I kind of like it. It's kind of like a 80s, it's a little bit American power metal, and there's the B-side a little bit more kind of like hair metal, hard rock-ish kind of, but has some really
Hmm.
great soloing by Tony MacAlpine and some really great songs. But yeah, it's not as well known as his instrumental stuff. But I definitely recommend checking it out if you haven't heard it yet.
I know it as it exists. I haven't heard it too much, and maybe I
Hmm?
have dipped in a little bit.
Yeah.
I have to check if it's online somewhere, if you can stream it
Yeah, you
somewhere.
can
It's on
stream it. It's
Spotify,
on
so okay.
Spotify. It's on Spotify. So
Oh, nice, nice.
highly recommended checking it out. I mean, the
Yeah,
guy did so
definitely.
much stuff. It's impossible to know it
Yeah,
all.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I have to check it out. We'll put it on my favorite list
Yeah,
right now.
yeah,
Because sometimes in band context, that's another really interesting thing about these shred guys. Maybe we can
yeah,
go that side road right now. That
yeah.
in the band context, that they also work quite well. I mean, we have here with Tony MacAlpine in that. Project Driver
Yeah,
mask kind of thing, how
yeah,
it was called.
yeah.
And he's got Vinny in
Vicious
Vicious
Rumors.
Rumors,
That
the
was a
first
great
Vicious
record.
Rumors, the
Yes.
first Vicious, which is
Yeah,
we're definitely going to talk about that when we're talking about Vinny, but that's a
yeah,
really great record, yeah.
absolutely.
So Paul Gilbert, Mr. Big, etc. So that's
Yeah,
always interesting to see
yeah.
those kind of instrumental shred heroes in a more kind of band
Band
situation,
context.
and
Yeah.
how they in the band context and how they work
Hmm.
out together with vocals
Yeah,
and
yeah,
in these kind of situations. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Right. Let's go to Maximum
yeah.
Security. It's not released on Shrapnel Record.
No, it was
is
on
a
Squawk
different.
Records. That was
Yeah,
actually a label that Tony MacAlpine had together with Winnie Moore, because Time Odyssey was released on that same label
on
as
yeah.
well, Squawk
hmm
Records. Yeah.
That's really interesting because
Hmm.
nowadays this can have an impact if something is on Spotify or not.
Yeah.
And what I
Yeah.
think is interesting, Maximum Security is on Spotify.
But
I
only
know that now.
but only since recently. It wasn't for a long
Yeah,
time.
since recently.
Yeah.
But for example, Time Odyssey from
It's
Vinnie
not.
Moore
It's
is
not.
still not on Spotify. Yeah.
Exactly.
You still have to listen to it on YouTube or on YouTube because I recently checked you cannot stream it anywhere.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
that's kind of interesting. I would love to find out why that one record is on Spotify, the other one not. It has to do with royalties or
Yeah,
something
I'm
like
assuming,
that.
I'm probably assuming they're working on the second one to getting on Time Odyssey and getting it on there right now, because yeah, Maximum Security was his, even in the 90s, it was before the internet, but it was very hard to find a copy on
Mhm.
CD. And then I got it from this mail order, it was called Rock Mail, Klaus Scheller. They had all these RH videos and Shrapnel records, and I ordered it. And I received, and I also ordered Time Odyssey from that store at the time, but it was actually very difficult to find, and for a time these albums were going for a pretty high price on eBay for a while. So yeah, it was and also, I don't know, because if you read the booklet of Maximum Security, it says produced by Mike Varney for Shrapnel Records, but then in the end they decided not to do it through Shrapnel. So I don't know if Tony maybe had only like a 2 album deal in the beginning of Shrapnel, and then probably wanted, because yeah, again, Mike Varney is not very well known for
Yeah.
huge payouts. Well, that's, so maybe they thought they could do it better if they do their own label.
It's
Yeah.
as they don't own and keep the money and
Yeah.
everything. Yeah,
Hmm.
That's kind of interesting. I didn't knew that. Yeah,
Hmm.
but here I would say we have the songs that are, I would say, most famous for
Yeah.
the solo work from
Yeah.
Tony MacAlpine,
Yeah.
especially the ballad "Tears of Sahara."
Yes. And also Hundreds of Thousands, the second tune
Hundreds of
of the album.
thousands called
Yeah.
Autumn Lords. Yeah, of
Yeah.
course we have King's Cup. A lot of
Yeah.
songs that later is really really common in his live
Yeah.
performances.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Time and the Test, Key
Yeah.
to the City, all
Yeah.
really great songs. Really
Yeah.
like that record as well.
Yeah.
A really
Yeah, me too.
really great record. Especially Tears of Sahara showcase how beautiful he can write melodies and how beautiful he
Absolutely.
can execute these melodies
Yes.
with
Yes.
some really great phrasing. I
Yes.
remember I once covered it like 5 years ago, something
Hmm.
like that. And I remember how it was not easy to get this kind of touch and vibe and tone from
Yeah.
Tony
Yeah.
with his phrasing, etc.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, it's like about Tony MacAlpine is really the musicality as a whole. I mean, of course, he's a
Yeah.
very technical player, and it's all of that stuff is impressive and it's there. But it's really like his understanding of melody, like you said, his understanding of chord progressions, the way his songs are written. I think he's probably the best writer out of all the Shrapnel people,
Totally.
in
Yeah.
my opinion. And
Yeah.
you can also see over the span of his career how versatile he is with different genres, and how he always kind of reinvented himself. And
Yeah.
it's like the technique is kind of like the icing on the cake, but the
Yeah.
music would still be great even if he wasn't such a technical player, right? It would still be like really, really great music. And of course, it's nice to have all this virtuosity in there, but it's really, yeah, it's just a part of the whole package that
Yeah.
he is as a musician. And I believe he has perfect pitch also. I heard that in some other podcast. I don't know if it's true, but would make a lot of sense, obviously, concerning his musicality.
He is not, when you compare it to Vinny or to Joey Tafola or
Yeah.
to other, he's definitely, technically, Vinny is a little bit more precise.
A little bit cleaner and stuff.
Yeah. But yeah, Tony, what sticks out for Tony is his musicality, as I already mentioned. And I could also assume that this could come from his background, from his musical background, that
Yeah.
he was more educated in violin and classical piano.
Yes, exactly.
I think you can hear that in his composition,
And-
especially with the chord progressions and everything.
Right. And he never, at least on his early solo material, he never overplays. It's like every note has the expression. And I heard a story. I read this somewhere on the internet, but not sure if it's true. But apparently, it was his mother that told him when he made his first demos to not overplay and then he started like making these really, really because it's really easy to get into his music, right? Because his songs, they're not like For example, I love Perpetual Burn by Jason Becker, but I can understand that for non-guitar
Yeah.
players, it's a little bit much
Hmm.
sometimes. It's coming
Yeah.
at you, and you have to really. But the Tony MacAlpine stuff is very accessible. You know,
Yeah.
it's very very. Wouldn't say easy listening. That's not a word I like because I don't because it's really good music. But it's
Hmm.
easier to get into than let's say some
Yeah.
Perpetual
Yeah, I would
Burn or
say
some
here,
other
yeah,
stuff. You
that's
know.
that's a really good comparison because I would say here the focus is more on good
Mm-hmm.
melodies, strong
Mm-hmm.
chord progressions,
Yeah.
and the connection between those. While on
Yeah.
Jason on Perpetual Burn, it's this, I think that's kind of the wildness of Jason Becker
Sure.
that you have these more chaotic kind of songs, which are
Yeah.
still great,
Yeah.
but they take some time to get into it and to appreciate
Yeah, it takes
the
more
beauty
listens to
of
get
what
into it. Right, right,
Jason was
right,
doing. That
right.
it takes a little bit more listen
Right, with
than
all the
uh,
counterpoint going on and all the stuff,
yeah,
it takes it's a little bit harder to get into. And
yeah,
what's also interesting about Maximum Security is the guest soloist because you have George Lynch
yeah,
playing guest solo on Tears of Sahara and Division, and you
yeah.
got Jeff
Jeff
Watson of
Watson,
Night Ranger on the King's Cup, right, where they're
King's
doing
Cup.
where he's
Yeah.
doing the eight finger tapping stuff. So yeah, that's cool.
That's also quite interesting to that you can instantly hear on Tears of Sahara that
Yeah,
when the solo is not from Tony, it is from
yeah,
George Lynch.
yeah, yeah,
It instantly
yeah,
sticks out.
yeah.
George Lynch, that's going to be an interesting episode because I don't know too much about George Lynch. There, I'm
Hmm.
going to learn a lot from you there when
Yeah,
we're talking a little bit about George Lynch.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but I always loved his solo on on Tears of Sahara.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Yeah,
Really, really,
it's
really great solo.
yeah. And on these old live recordings from 96, 97, you have Tony playing both solo parts. And it's
Hmm.
also really, really cool, really, really cool to hear. And I believe that George Lynch, it was like this, I think. So I know that Tony was a fan of George Lynch because he liked like Dokken and all these bands,
Hmm.
but George Lynch was also a big fan of Tony. So when Edge of Insanity came out, apparently George Lynch wanted to get some lessons from Tony.
Ah,
And
okay.
this is probably how they got in touch, and then yeah, George Lynch was guesting on the Maximum Security record because of
Yeah,
that. Yeah,
yeah. And
so
also here now on this record, we now have Dean Castronova and Atma Anua on
exactly,
drums.
exactly.
The
Yeah. Hmm.
usual suspect when it
Usual
comes to
suspects, exactly. Yeah,
Shrapnel stuff.
yeah.
Because I could imagine that, for example, Billy Sheehan is not on this record anymore.
No,
Bass now is
I think it's Tony himself. It's Tony
Tony
himself.
himself. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
Tony
because
himself.
Billy
Yeah, yeah.
Sheehan at that time was already with the David Lee Roth band
Steve Vai.
with Steve Vai.
Yeah,
With Steve Vai, yeah.
David Lee Roth and Steve Vai. Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
I mean, Steve Smith was already when the first record was coming out. Steve Smith was a
yeah.
hot cat
I
in
mean,
the
even
scene.
since the 70s, I think he was playing with Jean-Luc
Yeah,
Ponty or some of those guys. So yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. But yeah, really, really quickly going back to Edge of Insanity, that was something that Alex Holsworth was also
Yeah.
recommending to me to checking out the drums because when you will listen to this kind of music, we always more to listen to the
Sure,
guitar,
sure. But
etc.
but I know
They,
many drummers who are fans of specifically this record. Rami
yeah,
Ali from Freedom Call as well. When I toured with him in Sirius Black, it was because we were talking about which is the best Tony MacAlpine. Oh, it's the first record. It's got Steve Smith on
yeah.
drums. And when you pay attention, there's some really great drumming going on that.
Totally, totally. He was saying
Yeah.
like some drum fills and some grooves,
Hmm.
they're really, really great. So yeah,
Yeah.
if you wanna get your drummer into shredding, show him the
Yeah.
first Tony MacAlpine
Absolutely,
record.
absolutely, yeah. Even though Dean Castronova does some great stuff also on the Shrapnel albums, like
Totally.
on Dragon's Kiss by Marty Friedman, that drum
Mhm.
intro, it's fantastic. But yeah, but of course, when it's so guitar centric, especially we as guitar players, the drums, whatever.
That's right.
But when you start to pay attention, it's like, yeah, man, this is some really good stuff going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go a little bit into the 90s. I
Hmm.
think because in the 90s, as you've already mentioned, Tony was always kind of reinventing himself
Right.
for checking out new kind of
Yeah.
music, new kind of styles. And I think you
Yeah.
can hear that in the 90s as
Yeah.
well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
As
I mean,
well. Sorry.
yeah.
Go
He
ahead.
did his vocal band, right, where he sang
Yeah,
himself. And I'm not
yeah.
very familiar with that record. I have a friend here in
Master of
Mexico
Paradise.
no, not this one. No, before the Eyes of the World. It wasn't him
Ah,
because Master of Paradise was 99 when he sang
mhm.
himself. But in
Yeah.
1990 he did this band called McAlpine. And
Ah,
I
yes.
only listened to the album once and it didn't really grab me much. So I don't remember much from it. So, and I like a lot of these late 80s, early 90s, like hair metal, AOR kind of stuff. But for some reason, I listened to it once, it didn't really grab me much.
Uh,
Um, But I have a friend here in Mexico who is he's a big fan of that record. But at least up to this point, I haven't really gotten into it much yet. Like,
But wow, I've never had this record
it's
really,
very unknown. It's very unknown. That's also
I'm
why
just
it kind of
checking.
flew under my radar for a while, and I've
Yeah.
been listening. But it wasn't like I listened it once. It was kind of like flew by, and I never got the intention to get back to it. Maybe I should.
Hmm.
Maybe I should spend some time with it. It's a McAlpine record, so probably. I mean, he knows what he's
Yeah.
doing. But yeah, never
I would
really
definitely check
spent
that
much
out
time
because I
with it.
mean the personal. I mean, we have a lot of backing vocals. We have
Hmm.
violins in there.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
have three different bass players.
Hmm.
That seems to be like a big production
Yep,
for this kind of record. And I didn't have
yep,
it on my radar at
yep.
all.
Yep. It's
That's
definitely, I want to spend some more time with it, but still haven't up to this point, so I can't really say much about this record. Only that
But is it more like metal kind
no,
of
no, it's
or
more like
hard
it's
rock
more it's
or
more like Foreigner,
okay.
something like so maybe very radio friendly hard rock, quite
Hmm.
commercial. Not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, I even like some Bon Jovi stuff from that time, but it's like yeah, like I said, it from my first listen, it didn't really grab me much, and I don't remember much of it. So yeah,
Hmm.
so I don't know. But apparently, it wasn't very successful because it didn't really continue that band, and he went back to doing
Yeah.
instrumental stuff like after that. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is interesting that, instrumental stuff was more successful than the vocal kind of stuff.
It's sometimes I think about this a lot also with regards to my own music. And people say, oh, you got to
Mm.
do something more commercial. I mean, if you really want to do it, it's fine, but in the end, you have a fan base that know
Yeah.
you for certain things, and some
Yeah.
things might vibe better with them. And sometimes instead of appealing to a broad audience who don't listen to your stuff anyway, and then it's very hard to reach them amongst all the others doing it. Maybe it's better to build your own
Yeah.
niche and following and yeah, that's often
That's true.
works
I mean,
better,
I think that's a problem that, for example, Paul Gilbert has to face a lot. That Paul
Hmm.
Gilbert, he wants to play blues and
Right.
hard rock kind of stuff, and
Yeah.
everybody wants to know about Racer X or
Right.
want to hear like technical
Of
difficulties
course.
or Scarified and
Yep.
so. And I
Yep.
know a lot of people who went to Paul Gilbert shows, for example, recently, and were like,
Hmm.
"Ah, he didn't play anything from his old records. He only played Led Zeppelin, etc."
Right.
And it was when I did the interview, just as a sidetrack, when I did the interview with Paul Gilbert, it was like kind of a little bit from the feeling the same, that I was asking something about Racer X and shredding, and he
Uh-huh.
he has a skill to get into two sentences to the Beatles or
Okay, yeah,
some
right,
hard
because
rock stuff. So
that's what he really wants to do, right?
that's what
So
he actually
yeah.
really wants. Yeah. So,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
he's
yeah.
maybe
That can be frustrating. Yeah. Yeah.
can absolutely imagine. But on the other hand, yeah, like you said, it can be also like a good thing when okay, my fan base loves the music that I like to do, which is
Yeah.
instrumental music.
Exactly.
And in this case, I think it is also more authentic then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, but he was going in the 90s back to some instrumental
Right.
shredding and with
Right.
some records that I absolutely like. Some of
Yeah.
my favorite Tony MacAlpine records was done in the 90s.
Mine too.
Even
Yeah.
though that the first two, Freedom to Fly and Madness,
Yeah,
I
I don't like them
haven't
too
listened.
much. They're
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
They're okay. Like, but I know how Per Nilsson told me because he got into maximum security in the 80s, and then when Freedom to Fly
Mhm.
came out, they were quite disappointed because it's a little bit what was going on at the time with all the Varney stuff. Like he told all the guys, don't do anything neoclassical, right? Because it was more like,
Mhm.
and then you had all these more hard rock based records coming out,
Yeah,
and I think
yeah,
Joy Tafolla, for example, did it really, really well on Infra Blue. I really loved that record, but
yeah,
Vinnie Moore did Meltdown, which wasn't on Shrapnel, but it was also more in the hard rock style. And
yeah.
McAlpine did that with Freedom to Fly. It has
Mhm.
some cool songs. It has some nice melodies on it, but in my opinion, it's not one of his strongest albums.
No, no.
It's okay. It's not horrible, but it's also not a classic in my opinion.
Yeah.
And Madness is kind of where he started incorporating a little bit more fusion elements. And this is also one of the records I only haven't listened. I got the CD, but I only listened to it one or two times. But
Mhm.
it had a guest solo by his girlfriend at the time on it.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
Gina
really?
Demos. Gina Demos
Okay.
was her name, and she plays a
Mhm.
guest solo on the song, and she sounds like him.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a really interesting fact, but I don't know more about her. Like she never appeared anywhere else after. Apparently she was a really good player,
Mhm.
but probably never did anything else afterwards. But she plays a guest solo on the
Ah, yeah.
on the
On
Madness record.
on Restaurant at the End of the Universe.
Yeah, right. That's the name of the track, right? But I don't remember much of that album. I've listened to it one. I bought this used in actually the record store that was owned by the guitar player of Merciful Fate in Copenhagen in Denmark in 2013. Okay. I bought the CD there. But I listened to it once on the because I was on vacation in Denmark, and I listened to it once in the car when I was going back, and it was okay, but the really great ones start after that, in my opinion. Like that's
Premonition, and especially for me, one of my favorites, Evolution.
Evolution is honestly, if I'm honest, it's probably my second favorite McAlpine record. I probably take it over Maximum Security. It's that good. It has this song Futurism on it. This is like a fusion track. It sounds like a futuristic like car chasing scene or something. It's really awesome. It has these amazing keyboard lines and then some Holdsworth type legato.
Totally. I think really love that's where he really started to get into the fusion or the mixture out of the neoclassical and fusion, because there are songs like The Sage and Oversee Evolution, which are more fast-paced metal kind of songs.
Fast double bass. Now this almost sounds like Stratovarius, the second track. That's really
Oversee
cool.
Evolution. That's true. And then Eccentrist, Timetable. You have more like progressive fusion,
and Seville, the fifth track that's starting with this insane like legato runs. I love that record so much. I know a lot of people who say it's their favorite McAlpine record, actually. So
for me too. And I always loved the cover, because on the cover he was like really cool dude with short hair and this
90s type of shirt, this flannel 90s grunge type of shirt, and then you listen to the music and it's like super over the top progressive fusion, neoclassical. It's really cool.
That's really true.
It's got Tony Franklin on bass, incredible bass player. A fretless bass player, was in Blue Murder, also an incredible player. He plays bass on that record, so really cool bass playing on that. And I think Mike Terrano on drums, right, on this one.
And Mike Terrano on drums, yeah. That is a really great record. So if I would recommend somebody to get into Tony MacAlpine,
absolutely,
that would be one of the records where I say get it, because here you get like the neoclassical stuff and the fusion stuff.
It's so underrated
already.
Yeah, absolutely. So underrated, this album. Yeah.
Absolutely, and especially like as well, like the last third of that record, he was doing some symphonic kind of things with Sinfonia,
right.
Asterias, the Amadeus Mozart song that he was trying to play the violins on guitar and all that stuff. Really interesting record. And Premonition, I don't know too much about that record.
It's good. It's got Dean Castronovo on drums. I don't like it as much as Evolution or Violent Machine, but it's good. It got some guest solos by Jens Johansson. Because the story was that Jens was recording an album in the same studio at the time, and then they ran into each other, and then Tony was like, "Hey, can you lay down some keyboard solos?" And there's a big in the first track, or that's the second track, I think. There's a long song, right? There's a long duel between Tony on guitar and Jens on keyboards. And when I saw Tony MacAlpine live, he had Nili Brosh play a second guitar for him, and when they played that song, Nili played his guitar parts, and he played the Jens Johansson keyboard parts in the duel. Cool. So that was really cool. Oh, there's another story before I forget it. Before we continue, that also something that happened when I met Tony MacAlpine at the Musikmesse in '97. So my friend and me, we stayed there those 2 days, and then we were at the Yamaha booth where they had the pianos, and then Tony MacAlpine came walking by and sat down and played piano and played incredible, and a lot of people were standing around him and watching. And then one of the people working for Yamaha came and said, "Oh man, you should play piano for us to present our instruments." And Tony said, "No, I cannot. I have to go upstairs and present guitars in 5 minutes." And the guy thought he was playing a joke, because he played the piano so good, he couldn't imagine that he would also be a guitar player good enough to showcase like a guitar stuff. So that's just to say what an incredible musician he actually is.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, let's stick with that a little bit, with this piano thing and the thing that he is combining with piano and guitar. I mean, for a lot of people, he is known for doing a lot of lead keyboard solos, like feature keyboard solos in, as we already mentioned, Mind's Eye,
Mind's Eye, Out of the Sun, and also Time Odyssey, not that was Jordan Rudess, right?
That's what Jordan Rudess,
but Out of the Sun by Joyta Foller, and then also in the '90s, Vinny's comeback record, The Maze, he also does the keyboards on that. So apparently Vinny and Tony are really good friends. and
Yeah,
have
I mean,
been
there
for a long time.
sometimes are, or it used to be in the past, like being on tour together. Or
Yeah.
I think that could be a really good combination. You two, Tony MacAlpine and Vinnie Moore
Actually,
touring together.
there was actually a plan for a record of them together. I think it was in
Oh,
'90s, but
really?
it actually never
Oh,
happened. Kind of like the Richie Kotzen, Greg Howe stuff. I mean, that would have been
hmm.
awesome to hear
Yeah,
McAlpine and Vinny together on an entire record. That would, but then probably everybody got too busy with other stuff. But that would have been really really
yeah.
nice to hear. So yeah. So he's doing a
But
lot of guest keyboards on other people's
yeah.
records. Yeah.
I think that also is something that helps him out for his career because when in the 2000s later he was doing a
Mhm.
lot of session jobs, especially for Steve Vai,
Steve
playing with the
Vai
Steve Vai
was
band.
touring with him for a long time, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for a really long time, the 2000s, and there
Hmm.
he was playing keyboard and guitar at the
Right.
same time,
Yeah. Yeah.
which always kind of impressed me. I remember
Yeah.
when I was seeing first time some live footage of that. I don't know if
Hmm.
it was G3. There was that one G3 DVD where Malmsteen, Vai, and
Hmm.
Satriani, and there was Tony MacAlpine playing as well,
Hmm.
or like the Crossroads
It could
Eric
also
Clapton
be
festival.
it could also be the live at the Asturias Divide DVD
Yeah,
because
like
that's where
yeah,
McAlpine
too.
is on that one.
Hmm.
Could also
Yeah.
be that one. Yeah.
And I remember like then the Alpine was, going out on stage playing a guitar solo and was going back to the
Hmm.
keyboard.
Yeah.
And I always thought like, wow, that was a really good guitar solo. A little bit better than,
Yeah.
from my personal
Yeah.
taste, from what I
Right.
heard
Right.
from
Right.
Steve Vai, was like, okay, I want to know more about that guy.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so definitely helped as a
Oh,
musician
yeah,
in the
absolutely. I mean,
2000s to get a
he
really
was
good.
doing. I mean, what we get there talking about this in a little bit. I mean,
Mhm.
in the 2000s, he was doing so much stuff also. But that record after Evolution, Violent Machine, that you mentioned, which
Yes.
was one. This is also a really
Mhm.
really great one. The second track on there, Unfortunate Lazarus. This is like one of his best tracks ever that he ever did,
Yeah.
in my opinion. And it's on par with anything of Evolution or Maximum Security. But it's not talked about very much, this record. But it's really really good.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I mean, it's maybe a little bit the time when it
Yeah,
was
of
released,
course.
the
96, you know.
grunge time.
Yeah.
I mean, the
Yeah.
90s, I think with every shred person that we will talk about in this podcast, the
Hmm.
90s will be like the difficult era,
Sure. Yeah.
definitely. But
Yeah.
super great record, Violent Machine. I also
Yeah.
like it a lot.
Yeah.
And then Master of
Yeah.
Paradise,
What do you
which
think of that one? What do you think of that one?
I don't know too much.
Uh-huh.
I definitely know the title track, Master of Paradise,
Hmm.
and I think it's quite interesting because Tony is
Yeah.
singing on
He's
that
singing on
record.
that.
Yeah.
It's not bad. I think his singing is okay. It's not as
Hmm.
great as his piano or guitar playing. Obviously, probably. I think the record has some pretty good songs. It's quite proggy. It has some really
Yeah, it is
cool.
really progressive.
Right,
Yeah.
and there's some
Yeah.
really like one song is only in 5 and 7 or something, and has some really really cool adventurous harmonies and synths and guitar doublings that he's doing. So I actually like the album. I
Hmm.
think it would have been better with a different vocalist probably, but it's good. It's got Atma Anur again on drums. I don't know who's playing bass on that album.
Larry Dennison.
Okay, I think I don't know
Never
who
heard
that guy
about that
is.
before.
No,
Yeah, I
no.
don't know who that
But
is.
it's a pretty good album. It has like a mastering mistake, and the volume of the whole album is really really low. So you really have to crank the volume
Okay.
to hear something. Yeah,
Oh
there's something
no.
that went wrong when they did it. And then it was they made like a second edition of it because of that. But then they got another mastering glitch or something, and also the track listing got messed up or something. So it was very unfortunate, this entire release of that record. But
Ah.
it's quite good. It's not Evolution or Edge of Insanity levels good, but it's better than Eyes of the World, in my opinion, and better than Freedom to Fly and those albums. So it's definitely one of the not one of his greatest, but one of the better ones at least.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm. Okay, then let's go to the last record before he had a little bit of an hiatus when it comes to the solo record, but
Hmm.
a lot of things to do with other bands,
Right.
Chromaticity.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think in Chromaticity you can hear what he's about to do in the 2000s a little bit
Hmm.
as a foreshadowing. I mean, it was released in 2001, but you can also hear what's going to happen in some other bands or his kind of
Sure.
style that he is going to
Yeah.
do in some other bands. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a good
What do you think
record.
of that record? Yeah.
It's a good one. It has some really strong tunes on it.
Mhm.
It's it's probably if my ranking would probably be like his best Edge of Insanity, Evolution, Maximum Security, then Violent Machine, and then I probably would put
Mhm.
Chromaticity in there.
Mhm.
I think it's definitely one of his better ones. but I haven't listened to it as much as the other ones. I don't know why, probably because I got the CD very late or something like that. So it's like the other ones I know inside out. I listened to them so many times over the years. I know every note everywhere. Chromaticity, I'm just not. It's not imprinted in my brain yet on to that degree like the other ones. But it's a really good album. And I know he does a lot of like doublings where he does like some guitar keyboard lines where they play like some almost like Zappa type harmonies like doubles. So it's a little bit more on the progressive or experimental side at times.
Yeah.
And
again with
like,
Steve Smith back on drums.
Right, it was Steve Smith again. Yeah,
Steve Smith and Barry Sparks on bass.
Barry Sparks is great. He was playing in Yngwie Malmsteen's band, and he was also playing another great shrapnel player with George Bellas and on the John West solo records. Barry Sparks is really great. I know that Steve DiGiorgio of Death and Testament, who played on my first solo record, he told me that Barry Sparks is one of his absolute favorite bass players of all time. So,
I didn't know that Steve was playing on your first solo record.
On some tunes, yeah, it's like he's playing on 8 out of 12 tunes. Actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
I always thought like all of your records would be Linus.
No, I didn't know Linus yet at the time. So.
Okay. So that was before Linus.
He existed, but he didn't exist in my world.
Are we sure about that?
Yeah, I know. I met him first at Ibanez. Actually, I got introduced to him through my A&R Stefan Killermann back in the day. So Time Warp was before I met Linus, so that's why it was okay. On that album. Yeah.
So then let's go to, I would say, for me, like the most important band where Tony was playing in, and a band where I hope and wish that it will come back at a certain point. Planet X.
Yeah, Planet X. I love Planet X. One of my favorite bands of all time.
Yeah.
Yes.
It has something so unique and so special to it.
Oh yeah. You know what? It's for me, it's like if you listen to like late 70s Bruford, One of a Kind, or the UK record, but then you mixed it with Meshuggah and some Dream Theater, and it's such an incredible band. Totally. Virgil Onetti on drums, Derek Sherinian, and then they got Tom Kennedy on bass on the first one, I think, and Jimmy Johnson from the Alan Holdsworth band. Wow. Yeah. What is your favorite Planet X record?
That's hard to say. I think my favorite is the last one that they did with Alan Holdsworth
and Brett Garsett.
Brett Garsett.
Quantum. Yeah. But definitely also, great. They're all great. I mean, they never made a bad record,
But I also love Moon Babies.
Moon Babies. That's
That's
actually one of Ron Charzenbeck's favorite albums of all time. Is Moon Babies. Moon Babies is great. And I like the live record, Live from Oz.
Yes.
McAlpine shines on that one.
Totally.
Amazing.
When I would
record.
recommend someone a record to get into Planet X, it would be the live record, because I think on the live record you can also hear how much fun they had playing these tunes live, and it has such a unique vibe and energy to it. I absolutely love that record.
Yeah, there's also, I think Hannes Grossmann is also like his favorite Planet X is also the Live from Oz album. I remember when we were back on tour, back in the early Obscura days, we listened to that all the time. And I really think it's also remarkable that Tony MacAlpine is really good with the metal rhythm playing, because it's not metal rhythm playing is not something you don't just wake up one day and you can do it. I mean, it's really difficult. A lot of shredders have a hard time with it, and Planet X, for example, or like when Planet X, I mean, of course, when it comes from a pure soloing level, I mean, Alan Holdsworth and Brett Garsett are completely untouchable in my opinion.
Totally.
But in Planet X, I kind of liked it better with Tony because he had this crunchy rhythm style. I mean, I don't know who did the rhythms on Quantum. Probably was Brett Garsett. I don't know.
It was Brett Garsett.
It's good, but he has a little bit softer tone and stuff like that.
That's true.
Of course,
it's less metal. It's less metal.
Exactly. I mean, Brett Garsett is the absolute master when it comes to this fusion legato style and the Larry Carlton type stuff, and incredible, but I think for this metal prog fusion style, McAlpine was the better fit for the band. So if they ever did a reunion, I really would hope it would be with Tony.
With McAlpine. Yeah.
There's a couple of shows where TJ Helmerich played guitar. I love TJ for the tapping stuff, but he couldn't handle the rhythm stuff for that band.
No.
Who can blame him? And that stuff is hard.
Yeah. And then there was, later was some shows in the 2010s with that Austrian guy, but I can't remember his name.
Alex Makacek.
Yeah, Makacek. Yeah.
That's a great player also. Really, really great player. Yeah. Not too familiar with, but Yeah.
so awesome to have, new Planet X record with
Yeah.
Tony MacAlpine, with Donati, and
There
I
was
mean,
a rumor, I think Sharinian posted something like that many years ago, but then it didn't
yeah,
happen. I think he said, "Oh,
yeah,
new Planet X coming with McAlpine," and then I think a couple of years ago they released like a box set of
hmm
the. It didn't include the Derek Sharinian Planet X album, but Universe, Moon Babies, Quantum, and the live one. And
hmm
so I thought, oh, maybe they're doing a reunion or something, but so far nothing,
no. And
nothing has come out of it.
unfortunately, you cannot listen to it on Spotify or anything. You can
Yeah,
only
that's a
listen to the
shame.
Derek Sherinian
Yeah,
solo record, the first Planet X,
yeah,
but it does not have Tony MacAlpine on guitar. It has Brett
yeah,
Garsett,
yeah,
and the
yeah,
rest you have to listen on YouTube or
yeah.
get the CD.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but he does some
So
really, really interesting solos on those albums. More harmonically, it's not. It's more like it's more fusiony, more prog, but more in the Holdsworth kind of realm, you know. And this is
hmm
also something that really impressed me about McAlpine. He could easily switch because we also have to talk about Ring of Fire, you know, the neoclassical band with
hmm
Mark Bowles on vocals, and he could
hmm
easily switch from playing the
Yeah.
Yngwie, Jason Becker stuff in that kind of format to like Alan Holdsworth or Bill Connors when he's doing Planet X or Cap, you know, and
Yeah.
how he can master how he can master both styles equally well. I find it quite fascinating, you know,
hmm
how he can
Yeah,
do
that's true. And
that.
it was all that same kind of time. Like Ring of Fire, Edge of the World was like 2000, 2002. Cap
Yes,
was
but
2000.
the first Ring of Fire was actually Mark Bowles' Ring of Fire. That was in
Yeah.
2000. So in 2000,
Yeah.
he released Ring of Fire with Mark Bowles, which is also a really, really great progressive neoclassical power metal record. Cap,
hmm
which is like a New
Cap.
York fusion kind of really, really awesome band. And Planet
Yeah.
X. So he did all these three records in the year 2000. All of that stuff came out,
Crazy.
and all of them are incredible, you know. And he shines on all of those records. The first Cap album, I don't have ever listened to that one.
Yeah, yeah, totally, of course,
That's
of
such a
course.
fusion classic, you
Dennis
know.
Chambers on drums,
Dance
and
Chambers
yeah,
and
that's
drums and Barney Brunell
Bonnie
on
Brunel
bass. And
bass.
they
Yeah.
did like Cap 1 and 2, and then they did the third Cap record was called Cap 4, which is strange because it was actually the
Yeah.
third album. But that's such a phenomenal album also. And they're very hard band to Google. If you Google the band, it's very hard because of the band name, you
Yeah.
know, to find anything about them. But that's definitely absolutely and what I like, you know, a lot of the stuff we did on Cap, a lot of solos were like first takes. It's like first take
Oh,
intros,
really?
and of course it's a little bit rough in the edges, but I like that, you know, it has this really like that's how you're supposed to do a fusion record. You know, it's not supposed to
Yeah.
be like quantized and a million punchings.
No.
It's supposed to be like how you actually play and improvise, you know. And
Yeah.
on those improvised Cap solos, you really, in my opinion, because they play some really difficult changes on that and you can really hear his musicality, you know, on in that
Mm.
format. So yeah,
Absolutely. I think that's definitely worth to check out because it showcase like really good fusion, as you mentioned, New York kind of
yeah,
fusion, little bit bluesy here and there kind of
hmm
side from
yeah,
Tony MacAlpine,
yeah,
and his it just his fun and enjoyment in playing these kind of things.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that's these kind of, especially like these three records, Mark Bowles, Ring of Fire, Cap
right,
One, and Universe,
right.
are the records where I thought like it's a shame that Tony is so underrated
Absolutely,
in the
absolutely.
guitar scene.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's you know there's this weird thing, and I usually have this when I talk with older players, mostly like 80s guys, and a lot of them appreciate Yngwie because he has this bluesy tone and this bluesy quality, and a lot of people say, oh, the McAlpine tone is a little bit sterile. I don't necessarily agree with that, but a lot of people say, and then a lot of people think, oh, he's just playing fast and over the top and stuff, but it's not
No.
like that at all, you know. It's like people don't maybe I don't know what they heard. Maybe they confuse it with something else or something, but there's there's this. I remember my guitar teacher when I was at the Freiburg Jazz and Rock School in the late 90s. I studied there, and he was a big Malmsteen fan, but he said, "Ah, no, McAlpine, this stuff is horrible." And I'm like, "Have you ever listened to it? You know, like I don't know where this
Yes.
where that idea comes from. You know,
Yeah.
but it's also like the German metal magazines back in the 80s. They crushed everything. Everything that wasn't shrapnel, they gave a bad review and they talked about it
Mm.
like it's just people trying to show off and play fast. But where the reality is that all of these dudes could write really great songs and were really good musicians as a complete package and not just
Yeah.
technique show offs, you know. But for
Yeah.
some weird reason, this opinion is still going on, you know, and
Yeah.
it's strange.
And it's a shame because especially
Yeah,
Planet X, I think Planet X is such a unique sound and has such a
yeah,
unique vibe. I mean, yes, a lot of songs were written by Virgil Donati, but
hmm
executed by
right,
Tony, and
right,
as well the solos. And for me, that's when I would imagine cypher futuristic kind of music that would be Planet X.
Absolutely.
Whenever I'm,
Absolutely.
a couple of days ago, I was standing in the night on the fields and was, looking at the stars. And every time when I look at the stars, Planet X is ringing in my ear, because that's the music for me to travel across the stars.
I mean, these records are now like over 20 years old, and they still sound like music from the future. It's still like something that's coming from the future. Yeah.
Because of the harmony, the composition, the melodies, the solo, it's not touched till today for any other band or something like that.
I agree. It's when I listened to One of a Kind by Bill Bruford, which I discovered after I discovered Planet X, but I'm like, there's like the 70s version, and they kind of mixed it with like some sugar and like modern metal and took it to the absolute next level. It's really, really cool.
For me, that is the definition of metal and jazz combined. I know that some bands are doing it in a specific way, like Panzer Ballet, or even like
where actually Virgil Donati is sometimes playing with them.
Yeah, I saw them a couple of months ago with Virgil, and really great show. But for me, this Planet X, that is. This is the quintessential combination and fusion out of jazz and metal. If you want to do jazz metal, listen to Planet X.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. So that's some great stuff. And then that was this really productive era, right? The early 2000s when he did all these bands. And then he resurfaced in recent years with some new solo records, which are quite heavy, but I'm not too familiar with. I still got the self-titled one in 2011, I think. I haven't really heard much of. I heard the Death of Roses EP one time, and I thought it was pretty good. But I'm not really familiar very much with his newer stuff.
I heard them quite often, especially when they were released. That was the time where I got every CD when they released it. Up till the last one, the Equilibrium from 2021.
Okay, are they worth? Especially, I haven't listened to that one at all. Is it worth checking out?
It is worth checking out, because I mean, what I like there is that he again reinvented a little bit of a style. He was now using 8-string guitars, starting with the self-titled, and especially the one after the self-titled Concrete Gardens. Really great record, and I think there he's going into a little bit more heavier side, but he still keeps those interesting, slightly dissonant kind of melodies.
Isn't Jeff Loomis guesting on that album?
I know that. Let me check. Could be because Tony was also guesting on Jeff Loomis' album.
Right. I know that. Yeah.
He is doing his solo track, guitar solo on Square Circles. Yeah, that's the 8-track of that record. Yeah, of Concrete Gardens. I really like those records again, because they're a little bit more heavy, they're a little bit more metal kind of thing, but still you have that Tony MacAlpine vibe, and especially again in the melodies, a little bit more dissonant, a little bit weirder in a certain terms, but I think they're great. It's a great next
catching up to do.
Era. It's a great next era of Tony MacAlpine.
That's sometimes the thing. I see this a lot with fans. With Tony MacAlpine, people say, Maximum Security. That's the one you have to listen to. And then they act like none of these guys ever did anything of any relevance afterwards. But it's actually not true. There's still so much good stuff that a lot of those guys did later. It's got to with many bands. You got that, right? The Slayer fans. It's a Raining Blood. That's the one you got to listen to. Never mind anything else. But I'm like, that especially like someone like MacAlpine, who did so much great stuff later on. It's a shame when people kind of limit it to like 2 years of his career or something. Because you also have to. I think about this a lot. I think it has to do with when these records came out. Of course, when Maximum Security came out, and it was the 80s, and it was such a new thing. And of course, you don't have the same impact. You can't have the same impact with anything 30 years into your career, obviously. But,
Totally. I mean, you get always kind of recognized for that kind of style. This is why I think it's quite interesting that he always tries to reinvent his kind of style and is, experiencing some more kind of different music, or trying to grow with the music.
Right.
With the style. I mean,
the opposite of Yngwie.
Yes, it is the opposite of Yngwie.
Yeah.
But the last 4 records from Tony, it is definitely more modern, and you can tell that he was listening to some more modern metal bands and is influenced by some more modern metal kind of movement, which I always kind of like. When even like older guys like Tony are doing these kind of things, because they're combining their kind of style with modern stuff, something that can work out quite well, like in this case. Yeah. And I mean, and the 2010s was quite a tough time for Tony. So
he had the cancer as well. Right, he got like stomach cancer. Yeah,
stomach cancer, and his wife
His
died.
wife, I don't know. I don't think she died, but she had cancer at the same time or something like that. I think actually Greg Howe's wife died actually
Greg
from
Howe's
cancer.
wife
Yeah,
died.
yeah.
Yes, I think his too. I read about that. His. I mean,
Okay.
could be wrong
Good.
here.
Mhm.
Sorry about that if I'm wrong here, but I think I read somewhere. But
Okay.
we can sum it up like he had some
Some rough years.
tough times,
Yeah,
some
yeah,
rough years in
yeah,
the
yeah.
2000s. Yeah.
But he came back and he beat the cancer, so that's really good. And he's touring again and making records and playing.
Yeah.
Actually, my friend Ryan Knight from Black
Yeah.
Dahlia Murder, you know,
Like,
he's good friends with who was it who played with Tony MacAlpine? Was it Emil Wrestler, I think?
yeah. He played a couple of years ago.
Right, and he's
Emil
a good
Ressler from
right, and
Daft,
he's one of Ryan Knight's best friends. Like they had a band together many years ago before Ryan was in Arsis and stuff like that. And he was touring with
Yeah,
the
true.
McAlpine band, and I think Ryan was teching for them or something. And then Ryan, when
Okay.
I met Ryan when he played with Obscura in Nashville, and I met Ryan, and he said, "Yeah, so I went on tour with these guys, and then one day at like they picked him up at his house." And there came Tony MacAlpine driving the van, and Owen went in like, "Hey," and Ryan was like, "Oh, I can't believe that." And then his wife, "What's going on? What's so special?" And he was like, "Ah, you wouldn't understand, you know." So yeah,
Yes.
really cool.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's true. He's now playing a lot. He's playing a lot with younger musicians, which is
Right,
quite nice.
right.
Like Neely Brosh, he played along with
Right.
a long time with her. Emil Ressler from Daft
Yeah,
back in the day,
yeah.
which has some really cool solo spots as well because he has some. So Emil is more kind of the gypsy inspired kind
He
of
he
guitar
does like
player.
the Django Reinhardt or Rosenberg stuff,
Yeah.
but on the electric guitar, right? Yeah, that's
Yeah,
really cool.
really, really cool. And currently, right now, he is touring with. I don't know his name. I can't remember his name. He's a Brazilian guitar player. He's
Okay.
quite young. He's like 10 years younger than me. So like 25 or so. Really, really, really cool kind of aggressive guitar player with a really cool aesthetic and really cool kind of kind of playing style. He's doing some reverse tapping stuff, some really interesting young guitar player. They're doing some stuff and some shows together. But yeah, unfortunately, nearly never in Europe. I think he played here in Germany like 2 years ago, something like that.
I saw him.
I think
I saw him in 2012. We saw him. He did the whole Edge of Insanity record. Was with Neely on guitar. Was Achilles Priester
Nice.
from Angra was on drums
Yeah,
actually.
true.
I saw that tour in 2012, but that was the last time I saw him play live.
Nowadays they're playing really rarely here. I mean, it's always matter of cost. You have to pay the flights. You have to do all this kind of stuff, and then here. The shredding scene, you know that quite well, but probably is much smaller than in the States.
I guess I mean when stuff like Animals as Leaders or Pliny are playing, they have pretty good turnouts. But a lot of these older, I remember I saw Michael Lee Firkins in the Netherlands, and he was playing in a small bar in front of 20 people. You know, it was very sad.
No.
You know, yeah.
I mean those new kids, which definitely deserve the success, they should get those guys, as a supporter on.
I think so. I think so too.
That the young people will understand where a lot of it comes from.
Imagine Animals as Leaders touring with maybe Tony MacAlpine or Greg Howe opening, or maybe Tosin should put together like a kind of like how they did this with what was this called? This Summer Slaughter tour that Necrophages did with all this band. Imagine if Tosin did something like that, but with like instrumental stuff, and you would get Greg Howe on the bill and Tony MacAlpine.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Maybe Marty Friedman, and then some other not so well known guys. That would be incredible. And that would have great turnouts. I'm pretty sure. Maybe not so easy to do logistically, but I could imagine this would be something.
Yeah. Absolutely, because that's it. I would love. I've never seen Tony live. Again, he played here in Germany. I don't know, like 2 years ago, but it was also like in a really small club, and I didn't notice it or didn't saw it until like 2 weeks before the show. And you were on tour with Obscura back in that day.
Okay.
And I remember because asking you, "Hey, let's go there," and you were
right.
Not there, and I couldn't do it, unfortunately. So that's something that I definitely want to see in the future. Tony MacAlpine live, like so many other shredders. Like, I haven't seen Vinnie Moore yet, and
I saw Vinnie because I took lessons with him in '97. But we'll talk about that once we get to the Vinnie episode.
We will talk about that in the Vinnie episode. I didn't know that you had lessons with Vinnie.
Yes,
wow.
yes. It was a 4-day guitar workshop at the Jazz and Rock School in Freiburg, and it wasn't.
let's talk about that.
Let's talk about that in the mini episode. There's a lot to tell, yeah. But it's just funny. I saw Yngwie, I saw Yngwie for the first time a couple of weeks ago. I never saw him but until then I had seen McAlpine, Vinnie, Greg Howe, Paul Gilbert, Michael Romeo, obviously Alan Holdsworth. I saw, so I saw most of my heroes. Yngwie was the only one I hadn't seen until like last month. We talked about in the last episode.
In the last episode.
Yeah, but McAlpine, when you get the chance, definitely check him out. Like, it's a really, really incredible live show. Really good.
Yeah. All right. Let's wrap everything up, I would say, a little bit.
Yeah.
What you would recommend? Let's do it like last week with Yngwie.
Yeah.
What you would recommend, like, let's say 3 to 5 songs from Tony. Which one would you recommend?
Okay, so my absolute favorite from Evolution, the song Futurism. That's probably my favorite McAlpine tune of all time. Then from Edge of Insanity, I would say The Taker. Then I would say Cap, the song Cap from the Cap debut record, the second tune. Absolutely incredible fusion tune, incredible solo by McAlpine on that one. Then from Planet X, from Moon Babies, the second track. I think it's called Noble Savage.
Yeah,
he does that incredible clean guitar solo, which ends with this huge 7-string sweep in the end with the tapping, like amazing. So that's one. And then I don't know, maybe the song. I would say. Maybe The Time and the Test from Maximum Security. Yeah, that is
yes. I would also recommend The Sage from Evolution.
Oh yeah, great tune.
Opener
with the keyboard
Moon Babies.
Leads.
Yeah, with keyboard leads, and especially the ending. I love that main riff when he's playing that, and then he's playing some lines over that. Moon Babies, definitely from Moon Babies. What else would I add? Because your list was already quite well. Maybe Tears of Sahara. I mean, it's a classic.
Yeah.
But I think when you are into shredding, that's definitely something that you have to know. Tears of Sahara. There's like a music video out of that for that song. But I think that would be the 3 that I would do. Or that I would add.
And so many great tunes that he did. You could also do, like I said before, Unfortunate Lazarus, the second track of Violent Machine. With this incredible, because I remember when I saw him live and he played that one and that melody stuck with me. It was like every time it's so epic, and it does these like -7 arpeggio line that comes back. It's just such an incredible tune. Definitely would recommend this one.
That's definitely something that I always kind of recommend to if you want to check out a new players, check out the live stuff, because there you have a good mixture out of the good songs and also some feature kind of solo stuff, sort of like with the Planet X record, the live record. I would definitely recommend to check out if you are new to Planet X. So really great. So nice. Any more kind of trivial facts that you know about Tony? Well, I know last time you mentioned something after we've finished recording the Yngwie video. That was quite interesting.
But I don't know if it's true. It's only something that I read on a forum sometime. But apparently Tony MacAlpine's grandmother was the first black woman to ever study at university in the United States of America. So if this is true, this is a very, very interesting fact. But I read that on like, was it on the Dream Theater forum many years ago, John Bertucci forum? I don't remember. And then the other thing I mentioned before, that apparently it was his mother that told him to kind of not overplay on the songs, and slow down a little bit and focus more on the melodies. So which is the thing that he does so great, you know that. And then another story that my friend Matt Williams, who owned the Liquid Note Records label, he owned a guitar magazine in the 80s called the G-Force. He's a huge shred fan. He was writing letters with Tony MacAlpine and with Michael Romeo and with all those guys, in the pre-internet days. And he said that Tony MacAlpine apparently, for a while, he was working at a gas station and always took his guitar with him. So whenever there was no customers coming, he was like practicing all the time. And then when people came to play something, put the guitar under the table. And apparently that's another thing that happened. Again, I cannot confirm if this is true or not, but could be. Something. Maybe someday we could get one of those guys, for an interview or something, and then we could ask some of the trivia. Is this? Oh, and another thing that I wanted to mention before we wrap up the show. our friend and old guitar player from Eternus and Phil Tugas, has on his YouTube channel, he has the Tony MacAlpine demo 1984. And this demo includes a lot of songs that are on the Out of the Sun record by Joy Tafolla. And on that record, McAlpine is credited with some extra production and melody writing. And it's not clear. And we either have to get McAlpine on the show to ask him, or I might ask Joy Tafolla because he's a little bit more approachable on Facebook and someone's talked to him. If this is actually a Tony MacAlpine demo or if it's a Joy Tafolla demo where MacAlpine is playing keys. But the thing is, it's from 84 and Tafolla didn't really send, as far as I know, demos to Varney until 86 or something. And either it's Joy Tafolla demos and he was already friends with Tony doing keys and stuff like on there. But it's more likely, the theory, I think that is actually a MacAlpine demo, and he gave some of those songs to Joy. But it's this is something we need to figure out.
We have
and
to
I know
figure out.
there's a lot of discussion about that going on online.
Okay,
would be very interesting to know.
Then definitely we should get one of these guys one day into that show for an interview.
Yeah.
So that's the job to the viewer, to watch these videos as much as possible so that they get like viral in the guitar scene and that they get the attention of those players.
I mean, I talked to Joy a couple of times and he knows who I am because I told him Eternity's End. We got the band name from his song. We'll talk about this in the Joy Tafolla episode, but he would definitely be possible, I think, to get on the show. MacAlpine, I don't really know him in person. I don't think he knows who either of us are. But
as well, but there should be ways to get. There should be ways to get a person like that on the show. Yeah. Awesome, Christian. That was a really great hour about one of our favorite
very interesting.
Tony MacAlpine.
Absolutely.
Yes, definitely. And definitely check out the first episode of History of Shred that we have done so far about Yngwie Malmsteen if you haven't seen it. And if you haven't did it right now yet, then of course subscribe to this channel wherever this video is appearing. Yeah.
One more last trivia that I forgot that I also wanted to mention. Sorry, there's so much about Tony MacAlpine, but there is this movie Crazy from the year 2008. It's about a jazz musician. I forgot who it was, but Tony MacAlpine plays in that movie, and he plays Wes Montgomery.
Wes Montgomery. Yes. Totally forgot about that as well. Yeah, he was playing Wes Montgomery.
Exactly.
Yes, true.
So sorry for the interruption, but I think for all the listeners who haven't seen that movie, check it out because it features Tony MacAlpine. Yeah, just a side role, but another very interesting fact.
That's a good ending quote. Check out Tony MacAlpine, and we're going to see each other in the next episode of History of Shred. Cheers.
See you then.